Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today we're going to be sitting down with Conspiranoid, this new 3-song EP from Primus. These are the first new songs to come out of the Primus camp since 2017's The Desaturating 7, an ambitious but ultimately not very well structured or paced concept album based off of the Color Goblins children's book. It seems that Primus have been pretty slow to put out new music since their reunification in 2012 with Green Nagahide. It's great to have the complete original lineup back, but I'm surprised that new music seems to be released so sparingly from these guys, especially since Les Claypool's solo works and side projects have slowed down considerably with the exception of the Claypool-led in Delirium. So we've got this new EP featuring the longest track Primus has ever released, the very hefty Conspiranoia, sitting at 11.5 minutes. And for that whole fairly lengthy track, what exactly do you get? Well, not a ton. The actual track has a very slow pace and does have a lot of very cool prog-heavy moments, surely influenced by the more recent Tribute to Kings tour Primus has been running around the country. That, of course, is Primus playing all of Rush's A Farewell to Kings along with a lot of Primus originals. And so we get these really cool little jams dotted all over this song, but even with the at points very technical playing, there's really not much that actually moves the track along other than a fairly slow, methodical bass line, which really feels more fitting to one of Claypool's older projects. The bass tone here is very reminiscent of the tone on Les Claypool's Purple Onion, and that remains true during the other tracks on this EP. So the other main thing that this album has a bit of a problem with is its lyrics, and I don't disagree with the intent or the message behind these lyrics at all. I actually think jabbing at conspiracy theorists is a really cool thing to do. I like that there's a focus on pointing out the absurd and outlandish, but this really comes at a cost of being so on the nose as to be a little bit much. I will admit they do it in a much more tasteful way than some other bands I can think of, like Ministry on their latest release, or really any of their last albums in the past decade. At the very least, Primus has a much more well thought out process for these songs and how the lyrics are worked into them. But even still, while these songs are pretty good and do have some cool throwbacks, namely on Following the Fool, which has a very retro Primus sound, it all still feels a bit long-winded. I mean, what's being presented here isn't generally the best material that could have been brought to the table. While this song does attempt to recapture some of that classic sound, it doesn't really develop on it. Instead, it tends to double down in a way that scratches a nostalgia itch, then very quickly fades. I think Aaron on the side of Caution has a similar problem to a lesser degree with, instead of that classic Primus sound, this again feels a lot more like a Les Claypool solo project. So the majority of what's presented here ends up feeling kinda underwhelming. I do love a lot of the instrumentals. Tim Alexander is incredibly tight and has a very cool, crisp delivery. Larry Lalonde has a lot of really cool rhythmic guitar parts that are just as good as any of the classic Primus material. And while Les Claypool is going for a more varied use of his bass tone than normal, he still keeps a very great groove going. So really the issue for this has very little to do with the playing and mostly lands on the fact that these tracks are very much middle of the road songs on the writing end. And Conspiranoia has some really cool ideas, and Follow the Fool and Aaron on the Side of Caution both have some really great quips and thoughtful points to make, but they don't really land in a way that feels like these tracks have a very solid foundation to stand on past the most basic, tight instrumental. And I mean, hey, I'm really glad to have some new Primus out, but this isn't exactly the kind of EP I would describe as ambitious, past the attempt at making a particularly long song, which in this case is pretty okay at best. At the very least, I am hoping this release has indicated a bit of an end to the drought that was new music for these guys. Even if I'm pretty lukewarm on this release, I am always excited and ready for some new Primus stuff. Conspiranoid is a pretty okay 5. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this EP in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe. Also check me out on Instagram, check out my Reverb and my Depop. Links to those are in the description below, and thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.